This is a gorilla. Your folks are both gorillas. You are a gorilla.
They propose revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another reading of Code Word Barbelon. Today, on this Tuesday, we have April 24th, 2018. We are well into the book now, into some of probably the most difficult portions of the book, dealing with the Jesuits and their, should we say, subculture or their creations. And we are in chapter 39, Aleister Crowley and the little-known secrets of Freemasonry. And I'm joined here with Jörg Glissman in Belgium. Jörg, you there?
Hello, Brett. Yeah. Hello, Brett.
Great.
Thanks for the invite. Great
bet.
to have you back after a day that you weren't available. I always miss you, brother.
Yes. I expressed to my coworker that I would like to have more time in the morning if that's possible, and he granted that to me today. So it's really great to have brothers in Christ to work with at your job, and it's very rare, Jörg, and this is the reason I've kept with this man for years now, is that he helped me out of the ditch that I was in a while back, because I had actually, I was really more or less I guess I should say a New Age Christian. I was reading the newer versions of the Bible, and had that deep-seated futurist teaching in there somehow. And I believed in a future Antichrist. I believed in a world that was thousands of years old, longer than the 6,000-year creation that is actually stated in the Bible or so. So things really change when you start to recognize the devil in the details, that being the doctrines of the devil as well,
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that you make there, Brett. Very interesting. Listen,
well, it's the truth, brother.
Yesterday evening I was recording part 6 of that German videos, the Bible, Correct or Corrupt. And there is a table there where there is a comparison between the original Textus Receptus and the Nestle Aland text, which is the Textus of the modern version Bibles, like in this case the Elberfelder, which is the German version of the NIV. And they compare the different texts, and it was listen, we have to go through this for a moment before we go into Cold War Babylon. I
Sure.
just have to share that with you and with the listeners. I have to go to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 13, and there, I have opened the right page here already.
Great.
Verse 14. It says, and this is of course the King James Bible, but when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand. Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains. In German, it is even stronger. It does not only say, it's the same way. It says that spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not. So
Mhm.
now I have to take a little second and have to take on a NIV in English, because we are going to compare that with the NIV, because the German won't help our listeners here, because we are in English spoken here. So let's go to Mark, and there chapter 14 and chapter 13, chapter 13 and verse 14. And that reads, when you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Mhm.
Do you see the difference? Do you have your King James open?
Yep, I do.
Right?
Yep, I see it.
Read to me the King James, chapter 13, verse 14.
But when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand. Let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains.
Now I'm going to repeat what is in the NIV.
Thank you.
This?
Yeah, that's what I wanted
this
to.
this is when you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. What did they delete? Written off by Daniel the prophet.
Oh, wow.
And the abomination of desolation by Daniel the prophet, where does he speak about that? In chapter 9, in verse 27.
Oh, man.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate. So this is a direct part from Daniel chapter 9 verse 27, taken out of the NIV, because you were just saying you were into the futurist deception.
Yep.
Of course, because they don't mention here
No.
that you have the prophet Daniel
Yep.
that you have to look to, and he speaks about this in Daniel chapter 9 verse 27, and that is deleted in the NIV in
Yeah.
Mark chapter 13
I'm
verse
sorry
verse
I
14.
laughed, but oh, man.
No, but that's okay. I understand that you laugh.
No, but for
You know,
some
I
of
made-
our listeners, this
I
is
made- I-
not a laughing matter, actually.
No, it's not.
It's
a
not.
crying
It's
matter.
dead serious. The
It's a crying matter.
consequences are just incredible.
Yeah, because this deception takes people away from the knowledge and the understanding
Yeah,
that the papacy is the biblical, historical, and prophetic antichrist.
that's right. Sure does.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what it's all about.
This is
Deceive
just
the
one of
people.
them. I think this is even something that we have to share with Tom. He is going ballistic on that when we're gonna tell him that.
Oh, he probably already knows.
Yeah, but he doesn't compare the Bibles that much. He knows that they are corrupt.
Well,
but he
that's
doesn't know
true.
the
That's
points.
true. There's so many
this-
different points. You're
Yeah,
right.
But
You're right.
this is one very important point, because Tom
Yes, it
rightfully
is.
always hammers
Yes.
on Daniel chapter 9. And here is an absolutely prime example of where they forgerize these new Bibles to take away the knowledge of Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. So that means that here is the teaching of an unfulfilled Daniel 70th week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why these Bibles are so misleading.
Yep.
You know?
Sure.
And I just wanted to share that with you. So yesterday evening, I was recording this, and I read that, and I thought, wow, here I'm going to go berserk on. And yeah, of course I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of comments on that. But when you were just sharing that you were a quote-unquote New Age Christian and were falling for the deception of futurism, well, of course, when you are reading this deceptive Bibles, as you just said that you did at that time, this is just a prime example that I want to give you, that it's absolutely understandable why you have been betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the most important
Right.
point comes now. When I first met you, and you wanted to become a relationship, you wanted to get a relationship with me a little more. We were
Yeah.
on the broadcast, and I put you to the test.
Yeah.
And I asked you about who is the Antichrist and how do you understand Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 to 27.
Mm-hmm.
And you survived the test.
Yep.
Yeah?
That's right.
And very well, even. Only because in the meantime you had studied the King James Version and you had come to the conclusion that Daniel 70th week is completely fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
and that any other teaching is futuristic and takes away the spotlight from the papacy being the Antichrist. Now the listeners of this video will probably say, well, they are ranting already on again for 20 minutes about something else. Well, I can tell you, when you don't understand that the papacy is the Antichrist, reading this book is absolutely superfluous for you. It's redundant. You don't
Yeah.
have to read this book when you don't understand that. Yeah.
Right.
And there are so many Bibles out there, like I just quoted from the NIV, and you can, of course, put that in the pictures in the video if you want to.
I just gotta say, the deception is so subtle; it's almost incomprehensible.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it is. I mean, unless you really, really want to know, you can't. I mean, it's that deep. It's not a shallow deception. It's a very, very deep deception. And it's permeated into all these different facets of society, facets of institutional learning, everything.
Mhm.
It's incredible how deceived the world is. And that's one
True.
of the things. Yeah. I just, probably till this day, I just wake up every morning and shudder with this world. This world's really corrupt.
It is. And therefore, of course, it is no wonder that all the people are in there corrupt also. And
Mhm,
they
that's
take
right.
this wrong teaching over and they defend this wrong teaching as the truth because they don't have the knowledge of the real truth. And why is that? Well, for most of the people, I have to say, it is a little bit their own fault because they are too ignorant, because they are not used to ask questions anymore. They just accept the authority given to them and they don't ask any questions. Here's your pill, take it, it's good for you. Okay, thank you, and swallow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't
know?
know, Yerk. There is a very fine line there with the addictions and this this sorcery. Um, it's kind of a difficult conclusion to come to, and that I think each one of us have to personally encounter different facets of our own experiences with our consciousness. Let's just put it that way. That playing around with anything to do with your conscience and using drugs and alcohol or whatever to quote unquote escape is very dangerous. very dangerous. The Bible says over and over and over again about sobriety. And I mean, that's really where it's at.
Yeah, the Bible doesn't forbid to drink wine, but
No.
the Bible forbids to get drunk.
Yes.
And there's a difference.
Big
There's a
difference.
difference for me opening a bottle of wine and having a glass or two and just enjoying myself and a little bit.
Yeah.
And just drinking it for the fun of it, or drinking one bottle or two and then go drunk to bed or doing whatever. There's big difference in that.
Big difference. Yeah.
Anyway, let's not go too far away from the book reading now, because it was really interesting reading about Aleister Crowley, as you mentioned.
Yes, let's
This
do
chapter is called. But I thought that was really an important point, because you were just giving your testimony of how you were a quote-unquote New Age Christian.
Yeah. We're
and
only
you
about
were-
10 or 11 minutes into the broadcast here, Jörg.
Yeah,
So we're just
and you were deceived by these wrong Bibles, and that's just why I wanted to make this point of Mark chapter 13, verse 14.
That's a really good one, actually.
And
Thank you for
everybody who doubts that, look that up for yourself. And if you want more proof, well, then just go to Colossians. Colossians chapter 1. Let me just put that out here. I just don't have that open here. Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians chapter 1, verse 14. And there you will see that in the King James Bible it reads, in whom we have redemption, and this is speaking of Jesus Christ, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins. In the NIV, it will read, in whom we have redemption, delete, even the forgiveness of sins. Through his blood is taken out.
Oh, man.
And these are just two prime examples of why we, Brett and I, always hammer on, use the King James and trust in the King James and no other new Bible. Because it's not because they are newer that they are better. No, because they are newer, they are even worse.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard, Jörg, to tell someone that these Bibles are corrupted. They have to learn it on their own.
Yeah.
That's the hard part about this, because, I take the fellow I work with every day, for instance. If I was to tell him, well, your Bible's corrupted, yeah, right, you're corrupt, that's what he's thinking. But really, historically, when you look at the history of it, then you find the real kicker. This is what really is, what manuscripts are they using to create these Bibles or to interpret these words? Because this is not the Word of God to me anymore. These newer Bibles are not,
No.
But to someone that hasn't studied this and hasn't really thought this out, it's just a bunch of babble. Well, the Bible doesn't really say that. Okay, you kind of have to let it go, and it's maybe for another day when they're ready to hear something. I don't know, or when I figure out how to explain it. But yeah, some really good points here. First Colossians
Good. So
1:14.
let us start then on page 387 in the book Code Word Babylon, Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination, chapter 39, as you announced, Aleister Crowley and the Little-Known Secrets of Freemasonry. It starts with a few quotes, of which the first one is in Latin, and that reads, Audi vide tace, which means to hear, to see, to remain silent. That, Brett, is one of the biggest problems we have in our society today.
Oh, yeah, silence.
They hear something is wrong, they see something is wrong, but they just don't say anything. They
Like
are
that
just
Woodrow
like,
Wilson quote we were going over the other day.
yeah, they are just like sheeple being led to the slaughterhouse
Yeah,
and
that's right.
don't say a word.
Right.
They see something is wrong, they hear something is wrong, but they just don't care.
Just go along with the crowd. Just go ahead and vote. Yeah, that's right.
So to see, to hear, to see, to remain silent. And then another quote reads, but Masonry still survives, vigorous and strong as when philosophy was taught in the occult or Gnostic schools of Alexandria. Alexandria, by the way, the place where all these corrupted Bibles come from.
Sodom
So
and
when
Gomorrah
you,
from ancient
yeah,
times. Yeah.
so when you remain silent, Masonry still survives. This is why Brett and I are not silent, and
Mm-hmm.
we will not be silenced. We cry out against Freemasons. We cry out against Jesuits. We cry out about the abomination of the Roman Catholic Church and the office of the papacy, which is the biblical, historical, and prophetic Antichrist. That's the difference between Brett, me, and a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
We're going to continue with a wonderful quote from Isaiah that is even fitting to the discussion that we had a little bit earlier on the Bible verses, on the forged Bible versions. Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20 reads, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. What else is that but forgerizing the Bible, putting light for darkness, putting bitter for sweet? Aleister Crowley, who is probably most famous known for his quote from his book, "Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," once wrote, quote, "The ignorance of the Mason is quite boundless," unquote. Crowley was himself one of the highest-ranking Freemasons of his generation. As such, his jibe was directed not at the Illuminati Masons, but rather at those in the lower degrees of Freemasonry. Of this latter group and their superficial understanding of the lodge, the Irish proverb is apt: dogs will bark at the moon. The vast majority of Masons have no idea of the intensely occult and sinister nature of their lodge. Likewise, those outside Freemasonry see it as nothing more than a quaint, if not a weird, old boys' club. Quote, an insiders network that provides lucrative business contracts and influence for its members, unquote, is how one outsider put it. Its rituals are perceived as meaningless, if not ludicrous. For example, Masonic brothers being required to roll up one trouser leg and utter archaic and sadistic oaths during their initiation. But is this all there is to Masonry? The Masonic leaders like to portray the lodge as a purely charitable organization. A recent issue of The Builder magazine, which is a Masonic magazine, of course, proudly stated, quote, Masonry's mission to the individual is to uplift his character and establish a nobler manhood, unquote. The classic definition of Freemasonry, as given by the Lodge, is that Masonry is a system of morality based in allegory. But does Freemasonry deserve such accolades? Does it live up to or even aspire to these high ideals? Next to the Jesuit doctrines, we can charge no surer source of abuse and corruption of morality and pure religion and the manner in which it is represented than in the rites of Masonry. Much of Freemasonry is derived from the Hebrew Kabbalah, and it apes almost every other system of religion too, including Jesuitism. As Professor Robinson said, in all its, quote, progressive mummery, Freemasonry, we see much of the hand of the Jesuits, and it would seem that it was encouraged by the Roman Catholic Church, unquote. From his book, Proof of a Conspiracy, that we read already. Yeah, please, Brett.
Yeah, there is a mention of this word again that I just hate. Can you guess what it is? Rites, R-I-T-E-S. The reason I hate it is because it sounds like rights, R-I-G-H-T-S, and it's easy to think that, oh, these are God-given rights. No, this is ritualistic worship. It'd be much
Yeah.
better if it read rituals of Masonry.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
that's my only beef with that.
And also it says here in the very next sentence, much of Freemasonry is derived from the Hebrew Kabbalah. So does that make every Jew bad? No, but that makes us think of or remember of the Babylonian captivity of the Jews. And from that Babylonian captivity, they imported the Kabbalah into their life system. And that's why all the scribes and Pharisees at the time of Jesus Christ were so deceptive.
Wow,
And
that's
Jesus
a
Christ,
really good point. Yeah.
and Jesus Christ called them out for the
Yep.
wolf in sheep clothing and the
Brood of vipers.
and the hypocrites that they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they brought that back from Babylon. And this Babylonian knowledge of the Hebrew Kabbalah is the same the Roman Catholic Church uses because it also has their roots in Babylon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jews were, how can you best say that? Dipped into Kabbalah.
Steeped? Is it steeped?
Steeped into Kabbalah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Jews were steeped into Kabbalah during their captivity of 70 years in Babylon. And therefore, of course, they, since ever then, took over the same wrong teaching that the Roman Catholic Church or the heathen always did, or the pagans always did. Because the Roman Catholic Church is nothing else but a pagan church, under the guise of Christianity, but it's a pagan church. It's paganism. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And what the Jews teach, what the Jews taught at the time of Jesus Christ walking the earth, and what they teach ever since is also Kabbalah based on Babylon. It's the same. So the scribes and the Pharisees that Jesus was referring to in his time are the priests, bishops, and cardinals and popes of the Roman Catholic Church of today. Nothing's changed. And they all hide in secret societies like, for example, the Freemasons. And these Freemasons have completely been taken over by the Jesuit order in the 17th century. This is something we will learn as we go along in this book. Mm-hmm. Lying, treason, and even murder permitted, reads the next under chapter. In an earlier chapter, we discovered that Freemasons and those belonging to the Masonic literary societies, where I should learn this expression, Masonic literary societies like Phi Beta Kappa and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have to remind myself of keeping that in the back of my head. Mm-hmm. So in an earlier chapter, we discovered that Freemasons and those belonging to the Masonic literary societies must take oaths of secrecy to protect fellow Masons without reservation, and to use all their means to extricate him or her from guilt, quote, whether he be right or wrong, unquote. Yeah, whether he be right or wrong. Do you know that that is a prerogative that works for the Pope? Because the Roman Catholic Church says that we have to follow the Pope in everything he says, even though he is maybe a proven murderer, a proven adulterer, a proven fornicator. It doesn't matter. We still have to follow him. Mm-hmm. Because we have to follow the Pope, whether he is right or wrong, because outside of the Roman Catholic Church, there is no salvation, they teach. And this goes hand in hand with that you have to protect a fellow Mason. Whatever he did, doesn't matter. You have to extricate him from guilt, whether he be right or wrong. Doesn't matter. He is a brother in your fraternity. Mm-hmm. And here you see how the Roman Catholic Church is a mirror of Freemasonry. Of course, when you look at the hierarchy, Brett, it's the same. The hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, like the hierarchy of the Jesuit order, is like the hierarchy of the Freemasons, right? It's all pyramidical. Here's the real sinister duality of Freemasonry. Quote, when a Mason is taking the oath of the third degree, he promises to conceal all crimes committed by a fellow Mason, except those of treason and murder. Unquote. But at the 13th degree, the Mason takes an even more sinister oath to conceal all crimes, including murder and treason. Unquote. Quote.
Sure.
You must conceal all the crimes of your brother Masons, reads the quote here. And should you be summoned as a witness against a brother Mason, be always sure to shield him. It may be perjury to do this, it is true, but you're keeping your obligations. Unquote. This is what we call in other cases mental reservation.
Right. That's right.
And this is what we call in the Jesuit oath, the end justifies the means. If the goal is good, all means to achieve that goal are good. Even worse, it continues. If that is possible in the case of royal archmasons, i.e., those beyond the third degree, they must also promise, quote, to keep secure and inviolable, unquote, in their breast knowledge of, quote, any crime of a fellow Mason, murder and treason, not accepted, unquote. Every Mason is expected to maintain a vow of secrecy concerning the order's ceremonies. At the initiation of a Master Mason to the third degree, the candidate is required to ask that his body be cut in two and his bowels burned to ashes should he ever break his oath of secrecy. He is forbidden from revealing, quote, to a brother of an inferior degree, unquote, any of the secrets of his degree or other secrets of the lodge, or risk death. The Masonic apprentice further consents to have his, quote, tongue torn out by the roots, unquote, if he were ever to divulge anything to a, quote unquote, profane, meaning an outstander, and to suffer other mutilations. A profane is a derogatory term for non-Masons, like I said, an outstander. We learn from the Masonic Handbook on page 183 by Freemason Edmond Ronaine, quote, you must conceal all the crimes of your brother Masons. Should you be summoned as a witness against a brother Mason, be always sure to shield him. Unquote. We read that similar quote already earlier here. Freemason Ronaine continues, quote, prevaricate. Don't tell the whole truth in this case. Keep his secrets and forget the most important points. It may be perjury to do this, it's true, but you are keeping your obligation, and remember, if you live up to your obligation strictly, you will be free from sin. Unquote. So they are using mental reservation or equivocation, which gives them completely freedom to swear any oath, to commit any perjury, because the end justifies the means, and from that they are relieved from doing any sin whatsoever. The Roman Catholic Church in the confessional will always forgive these sins because he is working for the greater goal to achieve, which is the goal of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, this, what we've just read, is a Jesuit philosophy. It is a Jesuit philosophy. Yeah, we are reading about Freemasons, but this is a Jesuit philosophy. It is a doctrine of the Jesuits that it is not perjury. Sorry. It is not perjury or sin to equivocate in a just cause. The Masonic degrees not only have their secret password, codes, and rites, RITES,
Thank you.
of initiation, They have their own written constitutions as well. Rebold's History of Freemasonry boldly declares, quote, "The Freemason receives not the law, he gives it," unquote. And the 1880 Grand Lodge Report gives Rebold's declaration the seal of approval, adding, quote, "In all this we must not forget that Masonry is a law unto itself. Its perpetuity is dependent upon the force of its own influences. It never demands affiliation with any other humanizing agencies." Unquote. The Royal Archmasons, Royal Arch, you say, or Arch?
Yeah,
What is
Arch. Yeah,
Arch?
that's right.
Arch. The Royal Archmason swears, this is the full oath, quote, "I will aid and assist a companion Royal Archmason when engaged in any difficulty, and espouse his cause so far as to extricate him from the same, if in my power, whether he be right or wrong. A companion Royal Archmason secret given me in charge as such, and I knowing him to be such, shall remain as secure and inviolable in my breast as in his own, murder and treason not excepted." Unquote. Not only that, but as we read earlier, the Freemason is required by his oath to lie about the real activities and aims of the lodge. A former high-ranking initiate revealed that Masons are told, quote, "If your wife or child or friend should ask you anything about your initiation, as for instance, if your clothes were taken off, if you were blindfolded, if you had a rope around your neck, etc., you must conceal. Hence, of course, you must deliberately lie about it. It is part of your obligation." Unquote. Albert G. Mackay tells us that the power of Freemasonry is in fact in its secrecy. For Masonry was organized to hide the truth, not to reveal it. One of their mottos is hide and conceal. As Robeson wrote in Proofs of a Conspiracy, quote, Nothing is so dangerous as a mystic association. The object remaining a secret in the hands of the managers, the rest simply put a ring in their own noses, by which they may be led about at pleasure. Unquote. For as former US President John Adams wrote in his letters on the Masonic Institution, quote, "The candidate, when he takes the oath, is kept in total ignorance of what these secrets of the draft consist." Unquote. So, what is their great secret? If, as they would have us believe, Masonry is simply a fraternal and charitable organization, why is there this inexplicable obsession with secrecy? And why does Masonry insist that its members take blood-curdling oaths to keep secret even things that they have not even heard or seen, on pain of death, with dramatic portrayals as to how they would be killed if the member were ever to disclose the secrets of the lodge? What is the need to hide and conceal supposedly innocent and great truths behind strange and arcane symbols and code words? In short, what exactly is Freemasonry? The Masonic Lodge worldwide is a highly influential and in many circles respected organization. It claims some 23 million members, some say more. There are other semi-Masonic organizations whose members are unaware of the Masonic foundations of their clubs or societies. According to the highest Masonic authority in the United States of America, Masonry forms, quote, "one vast society of freemen held together by voluntary obligations. It covers the whole globe, from Egypt to India, from Italy to England, from America to Australia and the Isles of the Sea, from London to Sydney, from Chicago to Calcutta. In all civilized lands and among folk of every creed worthy of the name, Masonry is found." Unquote. Men like Garibaldi, Mazzini, Voltaire, Mozart, Masons many, are said to have been among their fellowship.
I got a comment.
Please.
Okay, we have a footnote on the preceding page, and I didn't want to make this comment till you were done with this last paragraph here, but it's the sentence reads, "And why does Masonry insist that its members take blood-curdling oaths to keep secret even things that they have not even heard or seen, on pain of death, with dramatic portrayals as to how they would be killed if the member were ever to disclose the secrets of the lodge?" And the footnote reads, "In the initiation of the Master Mason of the third degree, he asks that his body be cut in two and his bowels burned to ashes should he break his oath of secrecy," unquote. The first degree oath states, quote, "No less penalty than having my throat cut from ear to ear, my tongue torn out," unquote. So I just
Okay.
thought that was interesting because, these obligations all stem from the oath. So this is why Yerk and I both know biblically it's very important not to make any oath other than with your Lord and Savior in private, with him alone. Sola Scriptura.
Let your yea be nay and your nay be nay, and anything else is of the devil.
Yeah,
Bible says.
yeah, that's right. We're not supposed to do these things.
And we are not supposed to do anything in the hidden anyway, because Jesus
That's
Christ,
right.
for example, didn't do anything that was hidden. He did everything out in the open.
Except for
And-
prayer, I think is the only maybe thing I can think of, Yerk.
Well, but that has nothing to do with it being hidden. That is more that it's being private.
Yeah, that's right. I think
Because
the
my
same.
relationship to my God is my private relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
That I have that relationship, I put out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
I have no trouble sharing with you and the listeners and the whole world
Right.
that
Me
I
neither.
see Jesus Christ as my brother, as my master, and as my Lord, and as my King, and as my Savior. Therefore, I have a personal relationship with him, and how I fill that personal relationship in, that is my thing to do. That is my privacy. That has nothing to do with anybody else, but that has nothing to do with secrecy.
Yeah,
No.
just one more little comment I
Mhm.
can think of to add to what you just said, Yerk. Very important is that, these the quote, humanities, unquote, that we learn in schools, and perhaps there's those that have degrees that they hold from school in, say, psychology. And I know one of my family members is a psychologist, and I often talk with him, and they're very, very difficult time understanding how deep this definition of humanity they've gone in. It's really hard for them to comprehend it, and I struggle with that with my family member here, and I mean, it really is a bottomless pit, and that's a good example of why, is because there's such a great structure built on this word humanity. But once you understand that it's not divine and that Christ didn't give us humanity, it just falls apart, and it falls into the abyss of false teaching to me.
Yeah, there's a difference between humanity and mankind.
Yes, huge difference.
Mankind is what Jesus Christ created
Yep.
in this world,
That's right.
and humanity is what the Pope take captive
Mm-hmm.
from Jesus Christ's.
Well, perhaps
creation.
it's even ancient, I think. From ancient times, it's
Yeah,
Babylonian.
but when I speak of the
in
Pope, I
origin,
speak of the
perhaps.
devil. So
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's Babylonian, so we have Mystery Babylon the Great. Yeah, so no surprise. It's just that, again, it's really hard to explain any depth to that unless you've studied it, and come to the conclusion.
Well, that's why we are here for, to study all this a little bit deeper and to get a deeper understanding, because only when we understand our enemy, we can identify him. And then we are aware of his lies, and then we can see the truth. And then we can make a reasonable decision whether we want to follow the truth or we want to follow the lie.
Yeah.
That's that decision that is up to us.
Yeah, it is. Every individual, that's right.
Every individual, yeah. And someone who has been chosen by God and is a real Bible-believing Christian will never choose the lie. And there goes your dogma of free will.
Mm-hmm.
There is no free will. When you are a Christian, you cannot but choose the truth. And if you don't choose the truth, that just means that you are not a 100% true Bible-believing Christian. It just comes down to that. It's that simple. It has nothing to do with free will.
Yeah.
But I think the discussion on free will, that would be for a complete other subject.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Can't help but touch these things once in a while, because
No, that's true. And our Bible study that we have weekly, where we have read from Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Timothy now, Ephesians, all these books that we have studied, they make very, very sure that there is no free will. You only have to read it and understand it with an open mind and with the guidance of the Holy Spirit. But then you have to make sure that you have the King James Bible, because if you use a forgerized Bible like the NIV, you will never have the Holy Spirit leading you into the complete truth, because in that Bible, the Holy Spirit is not to be found. That's very easy, but also maybe a very hard lesson. But that's something that you have to understand.
Yeah, that's true, Jörg. A lot of them are very hard lessons, and I've found that it's almost better to really think things out before you even start with these kind of conversations within personal circles, and because you might just be throwing someone off the deep end and they can't follow you. Their conscience just can't follow you unless they have the Bible in front of them. They understand how sinister these doctrines are. I mean, there's so many sinister doctrines in this world. It's mind-boggling.
Everything the world teaches is sinister.
Yeah.
Actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. It's only Christ he's the only one that weeded it all out for us. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Got rid of the weeds and gave us a pure example. It's the only pure example we ever get in this life. That's the point.
It's very, very well stated, Brett. Yeah, that's correct. Now let's continue into the origins of Freemasonry. Some would have us believe that the origin of Freemasonry was in the medieval era. But Masonry has a much more ancient beginning than the Grand Lodge of England or the Stonemasons Guild. Its real source is the old Gnostic or Babylonian sun cult. Now we are going to the nitty-gritty. The most creative attempt I have ever read on the origin of Freemasonry was in a Catholic document which stated that, quote, once upon a time a certain king and his nobles had such large families as to be unable to maintain them decently, and taking counsel together devised they should be taught some trade whereby to live. A great clerk, Euclid, proposed teaching them geometry, called masonry, and the most honest craft of all. He ordered that the most advanced of his scholars should be styled master by the rest, but that he should call none of his inferiors either subject or servant, but always my dear brother. In this manner, by good wit and geometry, began first the craft of masonry." Unquote. What a comic piece of cock and bull from Rome. What a comic piece of cock and bull from Rome, because the document adds, quote, "The Mason must love God, Holy Catholic Church, and his fellow Masons, wheresoever he may go. Behavior in church, to use the holy water on going in, to kneel down, never sit or stand, make no noise or talk, but pray all the time, saying certain prayers given in the text. To attend Mass daily, but if a work, to repeat a certain prayer upon hearing the Mass bell." Unquote. Well, the story did begin once upon a time. A fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
Freemasons like to perpetuate another myth, that their fraternity is derived from the English medieval stonemasons' guilds, which to the unreasoning mind sounds credible. But, as John J. Robinson's extensive and meticulous research has shown, against all expectations, these guilds, or stonemason, were conspicuous by their absence in medieval Britain. In other words, there is no record of the existence of any stonemason guilds in the historical records of medieval Britain. Whatever the value of the fantastic legends that have been invented by Masons and revisionist historians to explain the origin of their craft, it is certain that it did not originate in medieval Britain. Yet almost every Blue Lodge Mason will still tell you that Masonry originated with medieval stonecutters of Britain. But then, dogs do bark at the moon. It is true, however, that free and accepted Masonry, as it is organized today, is the product of the Grand Lodge of England, which merely revived the cult at a meeting held in the Goose and Grydian Ale House on St. John the Baptist Day, which is 24th of June in 1717. Because according to Masons, like according to the Roman Catholic Church, John the Baptist was born in June, so that Jesus Christ could be born the 25th of December, half a year later. Whereas we know that Jesus Christ was born somewhere September, October, and of course John the Baptist half a year earlier, and that made him be born about March, April, and not the 24th of June. But that, again, is another subject.
Wow.
This was in the third year of King George. King George, and we know of course, from Rulers of Evil, King George III, but this is the first King George. From Great Britain, its principles spread in organized form throughout the rest of Europe. Lodges were established in Paris between 1725 and 1732, in Germany in 1733, in Portugal 1735, in Holland 1735, in Switzerland 1740, in Denmark 1745, Italy 1763, and in Sweden 1773. These Freemasons were bound together into a secret society. Members were obliged by oath and by the threat of severe penalties to obey orders and to maintain silence regarding its affairs. The society had its ritual, its degrees, and its passports, and of course, it had and still has its signs.
Mm-hmm.
Handshakes and the like.
Yep.
How far are we into our broadcast today?
I think
Have you
it's
any
good to
side on
wrap
that?
it up and leave
Because
Crowley for next time.
it's fraternity within a fraternity and Crowley's law.
Yeah.
But this is a subject that goes on for some pages, and I
Good.
think that would be interesting to keep that for next time. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
agree.
I don't think we
agree.
can finish within the hour. Finish the next 3 pages, right? Because then
I don't think so. No, I don't have enough time today. I've got to get back to work.
okay, because then we have to complete the last 3 pages. Because on page 396 we have already the next chapter starting, which is
Yeah.
then chapter 40, of course. So we're gonna continue next time on page 393 on the top, fraternity within a fraternity, and we speak about Crowley's law, where I already told you that he was the writer of the Book of Law, and that his law was, do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
That's right.
Okay, I thank you very much, Brett, for inviting me to come to the table today for another reading of Cold War Babylon. We are coming to the conclusion of the book, little by little by little, a little bit more than 120 pages still to go, and I'm looking forward not only to read this 120 remaining pages, but also to start the next volume after that.
Yes, we're closing in on it quickly.
Yeah, but for today, that's all we have, and you really need to reflect on the things that we talked about, and remember, even the stuff that we were saying before reading the book Cold War Babylon about Daniel's 70th week and the Forgerized Bible, with the example of the NIV, Mark chapter 13, verse 14, it was, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up. Look it up for yourself and compare it for yourself, and you will see that we are not just talking out of our asses, but with the authority of the Word of God. And with that, I'm going to leave it to you to make the final statement here, Brett. And thank you very much for watching and listening and commenting. And until next time, Maranatha.
Thank you, Jörg. Wonderful lesson today for the study of Freemasonry and all of its roots and so forth. And good to get to the Bible, get straight to the truth. And Jörg isn't joking around when he's saying that we're not just talking out of our asses here, because a lot of people will discredit the Bible for good reason, I think, because there's been a lot of assaults on the truth, and it's gotten a real bad rap. And hopefully you, dear listener, can come to the knowledge of the truth that our 1611 King James Bible is the only historically accurate Word of God that we have till this day. And with that, we close the broadcast, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order, which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things, aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.